Excluding your parents, Eugene, who is the first person to earn your respect?
I'm gonna go around the bend with this question and just follow me on this one, okay? That's an odd question for somebody of my generation, of my upbringing. There wasn't a choice of what adults you would respect in my house when you came up. If they were an adult, they were respect. They didn't have to do anything. They didn't have to earn it. That person was an adult. And Eugene Sr. and Helen both. When adults are having a conversation, you wait until there's a lull in the conversation. And then you say, excuse me, mother, father, auntie, uncle, grandma, grandpa, may I? When you saw somebody who was an elderly person, you spoke.
Yeah.
You didn't just walk past people, you spoke. That was a cardinal sin in my house. And you know, after my parents got divorced, when I was living with dad, I was living with mom, whoever one I was living with, if they were out amongst their friends, right amongst the community, and people said hello, and you didn't speak first or speak back when spoken to, there was a problem. So that's why I say, with regards to my upbringing, respect was key for everybody, for me. That's how I was raised. Everybody deserves respect until they give you a reason not to respect them.
Okay.
Yeah.
Fair enough. I'm of a similar generation, and that was a given. You spoke to them, they were who they were. And then there were still some that stood out as making an impression on you in a way that you went, wow, wow.
Okay. Okay. So in terms of impressions, then that would be, and I'm probably going to get in trouble for saying this because of what has happened to him of recent years.
I already know who you're gonna say. And I'm gonna tell the audience right now, I saw the list of people you worked with, and you might have noticed there's one name I didn't say.
There's
Go
one
for it.
name we didn't say, and that name would
Mhm.
be that person that first impressed me
Yeah, no, go for it.
would have been Dr. William H. Cosby Jr. Now, we can talk about the negative aspects of what he was involved in. That's a whole nother discussion. But what I've learned as a 54-year-old man, people go through changes, people go through stages in life. No one is perfect. But in terms of that time, in those days, when we talk about a person who had an influence on African American culture, we're talking about, regardless of what negative things he did, and we know that they were some terrible things he was alleged to have done, and I totally understand that, and I don't condone those actions. But when we're talking about 1975, and African American culture, late 60s, early 70s, first Black star of a national television show, I Spy, that was big. The person who was the originator who brought us Jello pudding, brought it to the American attention. Fat Albert, the specials he used to do on African culture and the specials he used to do on educating Black boys. I would ask anyone to go to YouTube and go down one of the Bill Cosby rabbit holes with regards to education and Black boys. And you might not realize until then just how important he was to the culture at that time when I was coming up as a very young child. And then to go a few years later on, when we think of the Cosby Show, when we think of a different world and the influence that his writing and his ideas had on an entire, not just Black culture, but an entire society. Remember, this was a guy who was known in America shortly after the Reagan years as being America's dad. A Black man, America's dad, at that time in American history, that was huge. And then a man who had the foresight to create a show that would feature historically Black colleges and universities, and then influenced literally thousands of kids from rural areas, urban areas, suburban areas, to go to the Howards, to go to the Fisks, to go to the Morehouses, to go to the Clark Atlanta University Centers, to go to all of those places. Now, we can have that debate about what happened to him later on in life and maybe what he was doing in those down moments when we didn't see the great things that he was doing. Yes, I understand that. But I also know enough about human nature, enough about people to know that people are more than their worst day. Everybody is more than their worst action. And what I will say is, as a Christian person, I'm so glad that God has more patience and understanding for us than we do for each other. So glad about
I
that.
will say this. So
Not saying, not defending, just saying.
yeah. So let me just say, so during when those revelations came out, I shared with my personal community having experienced acquaintance rape. And so when you say that, I just want you to know my mind is going back and forth. And it is a complicated
Sure.
situation because you're right. I feel fairly certain that I've not done anything at that level. But I also know that I haven't lived a perfect life,
Okay.
right? And none of us have.
None
And
of us
then the
have.
thing I go to is that his actions, those actions for which he was convicted, were 100% horrendous, period. End
Yes,
stop, full stop.
sure.
But I appreciate the context of it because we talk about our founding fathers. And even as African Americans, we know that they were slave owners. There are people who've invented things that we still respect their inventions. We honor their contributions. And we know that they might have beat to near death human beings.
Yes,
We know that there are people whom we respect who have sent bombs
yes,
to kill hundreds of thousands.
yes.
And we praise them despite the fact that they've got that blood on their hand.
How
And
about that?
so
That's crazy. But we
I'm
do,
not
well, we do it.
sorry. And I shared that part about my own personal experiences just to say, in no way am I condoning, but I also do want to give space to the recognition of what he contributed and where I come from. And that is, I can't deny that I looked forward to the Cosby Show. Like
Yes,
that family, and when you add the impact that he had in terms of reminding people of historic Black colleges, like
yes.
that is significant. And like I said, when I could tell where you were going to go and who you were going to say, like I wasn't going to put his name in my show. But since you did, I would love it if listeners could come down on whatever side you want to come down on. But I think if we're going to judge, and I'm going to say one more thing that nobody asked me to say.
Okay,
I have a family member who is anti LGBTQ and will go from a Christian place about their sins.
sure.
And my thing is, I thought the sinner was a sinner, and I don't see you judging the fornicators the same way.
No. We very conveniently judge folks. And once again, see, here's where I worry, but I don't worry.
Hmm.
I worry that in us having this conversation right now, somebody's going to take away from this conversation. Oh my God, Eugene Williams is in favor of Bill Cosby, and that's not what this is about.
No,
But I'm also of the age, again, as I approach my sixth decade on this earth, I begin to care less and less about what people think I'm saying when I know what I mean.
yeah,
So it's in terms of the question that you asked me, as a 5-year-old sitting next to Bill Cosby on a set of steps with 5 other children, eating Jello pudding and doing a commercial, and in terms of what he meant to the culture and what he meant to me personally at that time in my life. And then as I moved to 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 13, 12, into the teens and seeing what he was doing in terms of enhancing Black culture and changing the way a lot of white folks look at us, appalled by what he's been accused of. But I also know that there were a lot of people who were motivated and who benefited and who were inspired by parts of his life. And
uh,
I happen to be one of them. So it is what it is.
and I want to say that originally when I created this podcast, I had the intention of talking to people that I might even disagree with. I welcome it. I hope I have more people say things that challenge me to go, okay, hold on, let me think about this. Okay, okay.